Hey, welcome to How to Personalize High School for Your Neurodivergent Teen. We're going to talk today about how to make a personalized homeschool plan for your neurodivergent teen that gets them to where they want to go without making it super stressful for everyone. No one wants stressful. So, what you have to decide first is if you're afraid of the responsibilities of homeschooling a high schooler. We all think that when our children get to high school, we are we're going to ruin them for life. I know that when my children got to high school, I thought this is it. This is for all the beans. Um, if I get this wrong, I could affect their entire life. It was more harrowing for me to start high school with all of my kids than it was to start kindergarten. Really crazy, I know, but it really was because, after high school, what are you going to do? But I found, as I did when I discovered homeschooling autism, that I was not alone and that there were a lot of people I could ask for advice or I could Google to to see what to do. So you're not alone, and it's really not as hard as we make it out to be, which is pretty much everything in life, isn't it? So what if your student isn't college bound? That's what you need to decide first. Is your neurodivergent teen going to go to college, or are they um, going to entrepreneurship or an apprenticeship or something similar right from high school? Are they going to go into Job Corps? Are you going to use the job placement assistance that they have for young neurodivergent adults? So that's what you have to decide, because college bound is completely different than non-college bound. Because if your child is college bound, you have to tailor his curriculum to whatever college they're hoping to apply for. So, for example, if my child, we'll say Logan, wanted to go to the University of Florida, I would need to tailor Logan's high school plan to the admission requirements for the University of Florida because that's where he wants to go. But if Madison wanted to go to an art school, I would tailor her curriculum, excuse me, to something different because she doesn't need all the requirements of a of University of Florida. Madison actually was going to join a dance company after, so she wasn't college bound. She was company bound, as they called it. So I personalized her high school plan, and it revolved around dance because that's where she was going after high school. This was pre-COVID. COVID put a little thing on that, a little stop on that, but it's okay. So Madison didn't need to know Algebra 1, trigonometry, and all that. She needed to know consumer math and how to read a contract and things like that, how to make travel arrangements, things like, that you're going to use if you're in a ballet company. So I was able to personalize her high school plan for that. So decide if your student is college bound. Some neurodivergent teens are, some are not. And then after you decide that, then we can work on their plan. So it's a pretty big decision if they're college bound or not. It's also a big decision for college bound on transcripts. That's why you need to know, because if your child's college bound, you need transcripts. If your child's not college bound, you can issue a diploma and you don't need transcripts to do that. So that's why it's important. You want to start the transcript presentation or creation, that's the word I was looking for, in ninth grade, not try to do all of it senior year. And there are many ways to do transcripts, and we could talk about that if you want. But if your child's just getting a diploma and going into an entrepreneurship or an apprenticeship or going into a dance company or to job placements, then you probably won't need the transcripts, and then, you're just making more work for yourself. So after you figure out if your child is college bound or not, you need to find your state's homeschool graduation requirements. HSLDA.com will have them. You can see, or you can HSLDA has all of the states on there for what you need for homeschool requirements. So they're going to have what you need to graduate. For example, in Florida, where Logan graduated, there were no graduation requirements for homeschoolers. When parents thought that the homeschooler was done, they issued the diploma, and then he was graduated. So that's what we did. When we decided he was done high school or done enough to graduate, we graduated him with his peers, issued his diploma, and we went on. Madison graduated in Arizona, as did JoJo graduated in Florida. Either way, Madison graduated in Arizona. Again, there are no requirements for graduation in Arizona. So once we decided once she was done her pre-professional dance program, we graduated her and gave her her diploma. So we knew in advance in those two states, Florida and Arizona, that there were no graduation requirements for homeschoolers. It's important to know the difference between graduation requirements for homeschoolers as compared to their public school counterparts. So your child doesn't have to get 4 math credits and 3 history credits and 4 English credits if they are not going to college. There's always an if, for you to issue their diploma. And even if they are going to college, there are ways to do the transcript that can be 4 English credits, even if they aren't working quite in a typical way. So be careful that when you look up the high school graduation requirements, that you aren't actually looking at the public school graduation requirements. So that's important. It's important to know, because you don't want your child to have to do all that work that they didn't need to do to graduate because they're homeschooled. Now, behind every single individual child that has high self-esteem and believes in themselves and knows that they can do it is a parent who believed first. If you believe they can do it, they're going to believe they can do it. So anytime you talk to your child or talk about your child, you need to be saying, oh, when he graduates in 4 years, oh, he's going to graduate with a typical diploma. And then they're going to believe that. Now, homeschoolers in most states that I know of, there may be a state or two that I don't know of, can issue regular diplomas even to their special needs children. Even to your nonverbal neurodivergent teen, you can still issue the regular diploma. There's no need to issue a special needs diploma or a certificate of completion, or make them go take the GED or something like that. No, find out your state's requirements. If they're like Arizona and Florida and they have none, then do make a plan for what your child's going to do. When he completes it, you issue the regular diploma. That's it. It's really, really that easy. I know there are states that have certain requirements, like your child has to have civics or government. I believe Texas is one, but they're not terrible that you have to do. So make sure you know them wherever your child is at. If you're going to move, make sure you know both states' requirements so that you're meeting them. Now, let's get on to personalizing the curriculum. Now that we have all the background stuff done and the research all done, let's talk about your child. First, write down your child's strengths. What can your child do really well? Logan can do math really well. Madison, of course, dances really well. JoJo, again, does math very well. I don't know where they get the math thing from. It's not from me. It must be from their father. Everybody has strengths, okay? I don't do math very well. I am more creative, or I am more, I like literature and history. So those are my strengths. Whereas JoJo is a math whiz. So math is his strength. So we would focus on making sure that he got a lot of math in his day because that brings him joy. A lot of math in my day would not bring me joy ever. So figure out what your child's strengths are. You should know them just by looking at your child. What brings your child joy? Okay, when you think of their strength, you're going to find what brings them joy. It's important to know what brings your child joy because you're going to sandwich in those subjects that they don't like between the subjects that they do like. So they're more apt to do the subjects that they don't like. Jojo has dyslexia, so reading was hard for him. Reading comprehension, literature was hard for him. So I would sandwich a math lesson and a math game. Literature would be in the middle. So after he got done being frustrated, he did something that he was successful at. Logan's the same way. But if I did Madison that way, she would cry and run out of the house because she has dyscalculia. Math is not her thing. So I would put art, and then she could practice dance or she could listen to music or something after that and put math in the middle. So that way she did something that she didn't like, but it was sandwiched in between two things that she did like and that she was good at. So, what comes easily to them? What are they passionate about? Logan's passionate about snakes. He wants to be a herpetologist. So, we would tailor his high school plan to what he needed to run his own herpetology business or to work at a zoo, things like that. So, what are they passionate about? Of course, Madison is passionate about dance. That's why, she was taking pre-professional dance. Always ask for your child's input on where they want to be in their future. Where do they see themselves as an adult? We use the Autism Action Plan that you can get on my website, our Crazy Adventures in AutismLand.com. And it makes the 10-year plan together. So that way we can figure out where he wants to be in 10 years. We can break it down to 5 years, and then we can break it down to 1 year. And then we break up our goals so that we can achieve the 1-year goals. It's just taking long-term goal and breaking it down into manageable chunks. Make sure you do that and that you involve your child in it because, it's their life. They're going to want to know what's happening and have a say in where they're going. So once you have all that, once you know all your child's strengths and you've got a 10-year plan, you've used your autism action plan, then start thinking about what skills do they have that would be useful for employment. Can they count change really well? So they could be a cashier. Can they follow directions really well? Do they obviously, if they have auditory processing delay, you would not put them in a job that would entail them having to listen for everything and react accordingly. So, are there any traits that your child would do well in? Logan, of course, would do well in herpetology because he will pick up the snakes and the reptiles. I would not do well in herpetology. I am not picking up any snake or reptile. No. This mama doesn't do that. So, obviously, that's a trade he'd be good in. Are there volunteering opportunities? You can, in fields that they're interested in. He can volunteer at a zoo. In high school, get community service hours for, like we lived in Florida, so he could get community service hours for the Bright Futures Scholarship, and we could count that as part of his homeschool lessons. You just got to think outside the box, friends. So, and don't be afraid to do that. Jordan's Summer Shirt Project is a great one to look at. So, what happened is that they decided on one summer, like 5 years ago, it's doing so well. I can't believe it's been 5 years. That they would make up shirts that said, "Be kind to everyone." You've probably heard of it. And that they would sell them on the internet, and Jordan would roll them and package them and mail them. It gave Jordan, who has autism, it gave her some useful job skills that she could learn later or she could use later. Plus, it worked on some of her weaknesses, like not being able to follow multi-step directions. So they scaffolded it with pictures. You need this, this, and this in every package. And then they gradually took the scaffolds away till here we are 5 years later. She could pretty much run the company by herself. Not necessarily the business portion, but she can get the orders, package them, and mail them pretty much by herself. It's doing so well. You should check it out. BeKindToEveryone.com. Awesome Balloon Creators, the same thing. He can make great balloon creations. So his mom set him up to use that as a business. It gave him a job and it used his strengths. So look at what your child can do in a way of, oh, could he use that to make a living? Even though it's a fun hobby, like making balloon animals. But birthday parties, hello? I mean, pizza night. Now that COVID's over, everybody wants a balloon animal. Like every time we go in, I would pay the balloon guy for a balloon animal. We don't eat out that often. That's probably why I always want a balloon animal. So just sort of think outside the box on things, can you make soap? You could sell it online. Can you bake bread? It doesn't have to be stuff you sell online. You could sell it local at the farmer's market. So just sort of brainstorm those ideas. Now, the one thing you should add when you personalize your child's high school plan is life skills. Life skills are safety skills for all of our special needs kids, whether they're neurodivergent, they have Downs, they have dyscalculia. Actually, life skills are safety skills for our kids, regardless of whether or not they have special needs. The more they can do themselves, the less likely they are to be victimized. So if your child can handle money, they don't need someone to pay for them. And then someone is most likely not going to steal their money. If your child can bathe themselves, if your child can make his own meal, I mean, all of these things you see on there, if your child can get his driver's license, then he doesn't need to rely on other people to take him to his doctor's appointment. If he can bathe himself, then he doesn't have to rely on other people. You get the gist of it. Not everyone is going to have your child's best interests at heart. So the more life skills your child can do, the less likely they're going to be victimized by unscrupulous people. You should be teaching life skills to your kids regardless of special needs. Your typical kids should be learning life skills, but most especially your special needs kids, because it really becomes a safety skill and a matter of life and death. It really is. So make sure that life skills are in there, and you can make them part of your transcript, even though they're life skills. It becomes an elective. So there's ways to do it. Like, don't even worry about that. But make sure they're in there. Skilltrack.com has a great free life skill lesson every Monday if you want to check that out. So, friends. Let's talk about friends. Friends, one, you should be helping your child to make friends, especially your neurodivergent teenager. But friends make the lesson easier to do. And so join a local homeschool co-op or get with a couple of friends, a couple of other families, and do science together. Or if the mom happens to be good at art, they could do art class. Or the dad happens to be good at engine repair, they could do an engine repair class. Friends make learning fun, and you want learning to be fun. Sometimes we need to join local homeschooling co-ops or get with our friends for lessons for each other so that our neurodivergent teens can practice their social skills. And it's okay to to pay for a class just so your child can practice their social skills and learn how to interact with people that they may not know or they may not like. So that it's important that you do that. So don't think that every outside activity has to have a academic point to it. Sometimes the point is just working on some life skills, and that's okay. So make sure you stick some friends in there. Often we would join the city of Lakeland would have like Know and Grow classes. And so we would get some of their other teams and we would go sit through the lunch and learn, and we'd eat our lunch and we'd learn something about Florida, things like that. And so that way they had to interact with other adults that they didn't know. And they sometimes had to interact with grumpy older people who thought they should be in school. So it's important that we get our kids out there, and all we're looking for is socialization. Important. So friends make learning fun. We all know that. I learn more when I have friends with me. You probably do too. So now, don't be afraid to personalize the curriculum. If your child is going to go into a dance company after high school, like I said, she doesn't need to know Algebra 1 and 2 and geometry and trigonometry and calculus and all that other stuff. She needs to know how to balance her checkbook, how to read a contract, how to sign a contract, how to negotiate, things like that, how to do a budget, make travel arrangements. Those are the things she needs to know. So those can be her math lessons instead of Algebra 1 and above. Now, there is something to be said about taking the higher level maths if your child can. They do, it's more than math. The higher level maths also build higher thinking skills. So having your child take Algebra 1, Algebra 2 is working on some executive functioning. And so you want their executive functioning skills to be strong. So therefore, you want them to take some of those if they can. Now, my dyscalculic girl wasn't going to take them regardless because she has dyscalculia, which is a math disability. So she needed to know how to make a purchase and how to count change, how to use her debit card. Excuse me, all of a sudden I'm tired. Things like that, more than she needed to know Algebra 1 and 2. My kid with dyslexia didn't need to read Oliver Twist. He needed to read something easier than that, and so we personalized his literature to a lower grade because he has a reading disability. Logan has a hard time writing. It's a whole fine motor. Lots of autistic kids, it's a fine motor thing. It's a getting it from their brain to their, out on their pen. So again, executive dysfunction. So we would have him take a easier writing class, and then he could type it instead of printing it. How many essays really have you written since you've had a job and been an adult? None. I mean, I do because I'm a blogger, but that's irrelevant. Your child doesn't need to know how to do a dissertation if he's not going to college and he's not getting a job that needs a dissertation. He doesn't need to know how to cite a research paper if he's not becoming a researcher. So, because you figured out what your child is going to do beforehand, way back at the beginning, we discussed if he was college bound, and then we discussed, some jobs that they may or may not be able to do. Then you take that and turn it into a curriculum. Logan's going into herpetology, so he would study snakes and reptiles and amphibians, all of those herpetology things that are terrible. But I would make sure that all of his courses, if literature would involve reading snake books and how to take care of snakes. That would be his writing. He would learn literature, based on reading about snakes, and then he would do math. He was good at math, so he did like algebra 1 and all that. But if he wasn't, then he would do math of how much does a snake eat? How do I budget for that? How do I make sure there's enough food? Things like that. So if you're in a state that doesn't have homeschool graduation requirements and your child isn't going to college but instead going into the workforce after, then by all means personalize their curriculum to help them be better at, one, adulting, and two, their future job. So if they are successful adults because they have those life skills you taught, then and they can live independently, that's a success. Don't just dissuade that. That's a definite success. If they are becoming a welder, make sure they can do math problems. JoJo is becoming a welder, so he needed to know how to do math, how to things like that. So we personalized everybody's curriculum to that. Madison would take like 10-hour dance days. And on those days, we didn't do anything, to be honest, because 10 hours of dance, whew, one day she did like 300 sit ups in all the dance classes. I was tired. So she would do it on the weekend. And yeah, she needed to know how to write a paper. She was a reader already, so that was not a problem. I didn't even worry about literature. She just read and read and read, and I made sure there was some good literature in there for her to grab. And then we worked on the math. She joined in science when she could with the boys. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. So your homeschool doesn't have to look like the public school, and it doesn't have to look like your neighbor's homeschool either. So just because your neighbor is over there teaching how to dissect a cow doesn't mean you need to be dissecting a sheep, because your child needs to know that. If your child isn't going into a science field, they don't need to know that. Yeah, really. So make sure your homeschool should look like your homeschool. It should look like it was personalized for your child or children, and that it's only going to work for those child or children. Don't be discouraged that some lady's 8-year-old is reading Oliver Twist and yours is barely reading Captain Underpants. Don't be discouraged that all of the other homeschool teens have jobs and cars and girlfriends or boyfriends and oh my gosh, they're doing so much, I never see them, and you're lucky your child's got out of bed that day. It's okay. Comparison is the thief of joy. You're only worried about your child and how to make them successful. And that's it. All the other kids, they got parents to worry for them. You don't got enough room to worry for them too. So remember too that homeschooling doesn't have to end when your child turns 18. You can let your child graduate and issue the diploma and still keep homeschooling. No one's going to come check it out, or no one's going to come and say, oh, you didn't do that right. In public school, our neurodivergent children would go till they were 21. Then they would get the special ed diploma or the certificate of completion. You can certainly let your child graduate with his same age peers, knowing that he's going to live at home for the next 10 years, and then just keep working. You should be doing that anyway because you've done the autism action plan and you have goals to set. Now, as they become young adults and just adults in general, their goals and your relationship is going to sort of shift. So you're treating them less like a child and more like a person you are partnering with to make their decisions. So don't forget, number one, that they become adults and that they should be treated as adults, and they should have a say in what happens with them. The number one job you should be doing in any homeschool is fostering strong familial relationships. Relationships trumps academics. You want a strong relationship with each and every child. That is far more important than anything they're going to learn. Your job is to teach them how to find the answer, how to be a successful adult, and how to have a strong family. That is far more important than anything else. So make sure when you personalize your curriculum that you're putting fun things in there and building family and sibling relationships. You may have to schedule that because things will get crazy with therapy and all the other stuff. You may have to set up actual events or actions or activities that the family is going to do together or the siblings are going to do together, and go ahead and schedule that in. Just put it right on your calendar. You should be doing that first and foremost. That goes hand in hand with the life skills. So those are the two things that at the end of the high school years, your child should say, oh, I accomplished those. I have a strong family relationship, I have a strong sibling relationship, and I have a boatload of life skills, so I'm safe. Fact of the matter is, we're not always going to be here as parents. And at some point, your child is going to have to live on planet Earth, most likely. Well, no, he's going to live on planet Earth. But at some point, most likely, he or she is going to have to live here without you. So make sure that they have a strong family relationship, sibling relationship, cousin relationship, aunt and uncle relationship, so that there's someone to be their tribe when you're gone. Now, if you have a toxic family, here's the caveat, then by all means, do not have your child do a strong family relationship with anyone who's toxic, even if they're family. We have had to cut out several important family members from our go no contact because they're toxic and they're not what's good for Logan or for Madison or for me. Sometimes I count. So make sure that the people you're picking to build those strong relationships with are what's best for your family and your neurodivergent team. So that's important. Always, always, always remember that relationship trumps academics. No math lesson, no literature lesson, no science lesson is more important than your relationship with your child. So if your child happens to be frustrated that day and it's not, that lesson isn't going to happen without tears from him and you, then don't do that lesson that day. Okay? I promise you, it will be okay. Build those relationships with your child. Thanks for coming to my workshop. I'm glad you came. You can see I have 2 blogs, Our Crazy Adventures in Autism Land. I mentioned that earlier. That's where you can get the Autism Action Plan, and also specialneedshomeschooling.com. You can find me on social media. I'm happy to answer questions. So if you go through this workshop and you're like, oh, what about this? Or my child is interested in Pokemon. How can I make that into a career? Just shoot me a message and we'll brainstorm together. I love to do that. So all of my social media is the same. You just look up Our Crazy Adventures in Autism Land or Special Needs Homeschooling on any of the social media channels, and you will find me. Thanks for coming.